Sunday night. You've got the week planned. The phone stays off during study hours. The app timer is set. The schedule is written out and actually looks realistic this time. You go to bed feeling genuinely good about it. Wednesday afternoon. You're lying on your bed scrolling Instagram, the work is untouched, and the plan you were so certain about is already gone. And if you're honest with yourself, this isn't the first time. I know that feeling. I'd make a commitment, feel the clarity of it, and watch myself walk away from it 3 days later like it belonged to someone else. Not because I didn't care. Not because the plan was bad. Because the version of me that made the plan and the version of me that had to keep it, they were completely different people. That gap? There's a name for it. And once you understand it, you'll stop trying to close it with willpower. Because willpower was never the right tool. This is part 4 of the Indistractable series. Here's the thing nobody explains when they tell you to just be more disciplined. Every commitment you make, the plan, the rule, the promise, is made by your present self. Your present self is rested, clear, motivated, sitting at a desk on a Sunday night with a fresh notebook and good intentions. Your present self genuinely means it. But your present self isn't the one who has to keep it. Your future self is. And your future self is tired. It's a Tuesday at 10 p.m. after a long day and a harder evening. It's sitting with a piece of work that feels impossible and a phone that feels like a door out. And your future self is very, very good at finding reasons why tonight is the exception. I'll start properly tomorrow. I've been stressed this week, I deserve this. The plan was too strict anyway, I'll adjust it. Sound familiar? That's not weakness. That's what researchers call the present bias. The brain's tendency to overvalue immediate relief and undervalue future consequences. Your future self isn't lazy. It's just negotiating from a position of exhaustion and discomfort, with no lock on the door. And willpower is not a lock. Willpower is you standing at the door, pushing back. And the moment you get tired enough, and you will get tired, the door opens. What you need isn't more willpower at the moment of temptation. You need a decision that was already made before the temptation arrived. People have known this for a long time, longer than you'd think. Around 800 BC, a Greek poet named Homer wrote about a sailor named Odysseus facing a stretch of ocean where creatures called sirens lived, beings whose singing was so beautiful, so impossible to resist, that every sailor who heard it lost their mind and steered their ship into the rocks. Odysseus wanted to hear it. He was curious. He knew it was dangerous, but he didn't want to simply avoid the coast. So he didn't try to resist in the moment. He made a decision while he was still clear-headed, while his present self was fully in control, and he made it impossible to undo. He had his crew fill their ears with wax so they couldn't hear the singing. Then he had himself tied to the mast, tight, and he gave strict orders. No matter what he said, no matter how much he begged or commanded or screamed, they were not to untie him until they'd passed safely. And when the sirens sang, when the sound hit him and he lost his mind and screamed at his crew to release him, they didn't. Because the lock was already set. He didn't resist the temptation. He removed his future self's ability to act on it. That's a pre-commitment pact. And it's the oldest focus technique ever recorded. Nir Eyal took this concept and built a 3-part framework around it, and it's the thing that holds every other part of the Indistractable system together. Because here's what he found. All the internal trigger work, all the time boxing, all the notification redesign, it's fragile without a lock. You can build the perfect environment, and your future self will still find a way around it on a hard enough day. The 3 types of pacts each work differently, and you don't need all 3. You just need to know which one fits the commitment you're trying to keep. The first is an effort pact. You add friction between yourself and the distraction. Not a rule you have to enforce. A physical obstacle your future self has to overcome. Phone in another room entirely, not on your desk, not face down, in a different room. Because the University of Texas study we covered last video showed the proximity alone drains focus, even when the phone isn't buzzing. Adding 30 seconds of physical distance between you and the distraction is often enough to break the automatic loop. Website blockers with passwords you don't know. Have a friend set the password. Now your future self can't override it with a tap. It actually has to involve another person. That's friction. That's a lock. The effort pact doesn't require discipline. It requires inconvenience. The second is a price pact. You put something real on the line, something your future self will actually lose if it breaks the commitment. Nir Eyal used this for exercise. He committed to either working out every day or burning a $100 bill, not donating it, burning it. The difference matters. Donating still feels good. There's a positive outcome. It softens the loss. Burning is just loss, pure. And loss aversion, the pain of losing something you already have, is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. Research in the New England Journal of Medicine confirmed exactly this. People who put real money on the line when trying to quit smoking dramatically outperformed those using standard willpower-based methods. Not because they wanted to quit more, because they'd made losing the default. Eyal stayed consistent for a year. He said it was the fittest he'd ever been in his life. The price pact turns your future self into someone who has to actively choose to lose something in order to get distracted. That's a very different negotiation than willpower. The book that built all of this, Eyal's Indistractable, goes much deeper on how to structure these pacts for your specific situation. The affiliate link is in the description. No extra cost to you, and it helps keep this series running. Now, the third pact. And this is the one most people skip, which is a mistake. But here's what nobody tells you about the effort pact and the price pact. They work, but they only work on the outside. Your future self can comply with an effort pact and still resent every second of it. It can grudgingly avoid the distraction because the friction is too high. But it's white-knuckling the whole way. And white-knuckling is exhausting. It burns down your relationship with the goal until eventually you abandon the pact entirely and tell yourself you were never really committed. The third pact goes somewhere different. It's called an identity pact. And it doesn't change the friction or the consequences. It changes who you think you are. It works like this. Instead of, "I'm trying to focus more," you say, to yourself and out loud to people who matter to you, "I'm someone who does focused work." Not a goal, not a target, an identity. "I'm someone who doesn't check their phone during study sessions." "I'm someone who keeps the commitments they make to themselves." The difference between those framings is enormous. When you define yourself as someone trying to do something, your future self has an exit. It can try and fail and say, "Well, I'm still trying." There's no integrity at stake, just effort. But when you define yourself as someone who does something, someone for whom this is just part of who they are, breaking the commitment isn't a scheduling failure. It's a contradiction. Your future self has to actively say, "I'm not the person I told everyone I was." Most people, given the choice between doing the focused work and having to be a liar, choose the work. I didn't get this until I'd broken about 2 years of commitments to myself. Not because I didn't have systems. I had systems. I had spreadsheets. I had morning routines and accountability check-ins and 3 different apps tracking 3 different habits. But I'd never decided who I was. And without that, every system was just rules. Rules that my future self, on a bad enough night, could find a reason to skip. The identity pact isn't the most dramatic tool. It doesn't have the visceral force of burning a $100 bill, but it's the one that makes the other 2 sustainable, because eventually you stop needing as much friction and consequence when the thing you're protecting is part of who you are. Here's where it all lands. Your future self is not your enemy. It's just tired, depleted, and sitting with a door that has no lock. The effort pact builds the lock through friction. Make the distraction harder to reach than the work. The price pact builds the lock through loss. Make breaking the commitment cost something real, not something you can rationalize away. The identity pact builds the lock from the inside. Make breaking the commitment a statement about who you are, not just what you did today. You don't need all three for every commitment. Pick the one that fits the specific place you keep failing. If you keep reaching for your phone during study hours, that's an effort pact. If you keep skipping the habit you've promised yourself 3 times this month, that's a price pact. If you find yourself in a cycle of starting over, never quite believing you're the kind of person who follows through, that's the identity pact. The lock was always available. You just didn't know what it was called. If you're younger than 25 and watching this, you're getting something I didn't have at your age. I spent years trying to fix my willpower when the problem was never willpower. It was architecture. These 3 pacts, used well, are the architecture. You're ahead. Here's what this series has built across 4 videos. The distraction was never the phone. It was the internal trigger, the uncomfortable feeling you were escaping, that existed before you ever picked it up. The to-do list was measuring output you can't control. The fix was protecting input, time you schedule around your values, not your tasks. The external triggers, the 237 notifications, the always open inbox, the proximity of the phone itself, weren't habits. They were a system, and systems get redesigned, not resisted. And now, willpower alone fails because it asks your tired future self to hold a door with no lock. The pre-commitment pact, effort, price, or identity, sets the lock while your present self is still in the room. And when you put it all together, stop asking your future self to do what your present self already knows it won't. Make the decision now. Set the lock now. And let the architecture do what willpower never could. We're not done. This is part 4 of the Indistractable series. The next video goes somewhere most productivity content never touches. What happens when your focus isn't being stolen by your phone or your habits, but by the environment you spend most of your waking hours in, the people around you, the culture you're living inside, and why fixing that requires a completely different conversation. If you don't want to miss it, you know what to do. Subscribe.